There is something just fun about eating messy, delicious ribs straight off the bone. So today we're making a vegan version of a rack of ribs with a special ingredient that holds it all together. But before we get into that and the technique for adding faux bones to this roast, we need to make our seitan dough. So press a block of tofu, and to a high-speed blender add 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of fine sea salt, 1 teaspoon of MSG. Yes, this is optional. No, it won't taste as good if you omit 3 tablespoons of neutral oil, 1 teaspoon apple cider vinegar, 4 tablespoons of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of vegan Worcestershire sauce, 1 tablespoon of liquid smoke, and then open up and dump in a 400-gram can, ooh, that's hard to say, of Cannellini beans, liquid and all, fiber. Then weigh out and crumble 350 grams of your pressed tofu and then absolutely liquefy the ingredients. If you need to, scrippity scrape down the sides until it is absolutely pureed. Then scoop your wet ingredients into a bowl that has 370 grams of vital wheat gluten and 2 tablespoons chickpea flour, all whisked together. Knead the wet into the dry until you get a nice looking dough. Then let it rest for 30 minutes to relax the gluten so we can form it to our will. After the rest, take your log and stretch it on out, gently making sure not to tear it, trying to get as even in thickness as you can throughout the log. Then cut it right in half. Grab a rolling pin or dust off that bottle of aperitif someone left at your house a long time ago and use that to roll out your dough into ovals. A little tip here, after struggling to get it to roll out, I found it easier to oil the board before rolling as it helps the seitan move more freely, like a pod of dolphins in the wild. Go man, go! Once the dough is no thicker than a ½ inch, it is time to dough up your bones. Now I've seen all sorts of stuff out there like using cut up corn cobs, potatoes, sugarcane sticks, but today I'm trying out these wooded rib bones from a company called Faux Bones. And a small disclaimer, I did receive these for free, but I would have bought them anyway. So mock up where you want them to go. They should be about a ½ inch apart and sticking out of the dough a ½ inch. Now cut off long, thin strips and press it on the base of the bone and then wrap it, tucking in the ends. This technique is what is going to allow us to eat the meat right off the bone without it just straight up falling off. If you're using something smaller, then adjust as needed and feel free to wrap another layer around the bone if you need to. So repeat this process for all the bones, and at the end for the bigger ones, I was trying this thing where I was also twisting the strand as I went, and I think that added a cool texture, so try that out if you like. Now, if you run out of room on your strand of dough mid-bone, you can just start over with another strip to complete it. Just press down where the last one ended up. Once you've wrapped your bones, cut off any excess dough, creating what will become the final shape. You can call those leftovers spare ribs. Now we're going to add the bones to the dough using something called Moo Glue, which is a brand of transglutaminase, or TI for short. Make sure you wear a mask as it is a fine powder and you don't want to breathe this stuff in. We're going to make a slurry with it by combining 2 grams of TI with 8 grams of water. And by the way, shout out to Modernist Pantry, and disclaimer that they did send this to me for free, but again, I was going to buy this and use this for this recipe anyway. Brush the slurry generously on the top side of the slab and then use it to coat each of the gluten-wrapped bones, pressing them confidently into the dough and the rib next to it. What the TI is doing is bonding the seitan back together, since at a certain point, once the seitan dough is set, it won't stick. This is going to help us make that happen. When you press down, the TI creates a bond between the 2 slabs of protein, sticking them back together into the shape we want. In this case, a rack of ribs. The TI is completely destroyed in the cooking process, leaving only the bonded protein. Science. To ensure that this sticks, place some parchment paper on top and rest some heavy books on it for about an hour. After the rest, your ribs should be bonded to both the big piece of dough and each other and not falling off. Now bake it in the oven for 30 minutes at 350 F, 175 C. This will set the shape of the dough, and once it's done baking, add enough stock to your pan so that it can be covered and bake for another 2 hours at the same temp. I use this janky little steamer basket on top to hold it down. If you don't have this, just make sure to flip halfway and check that there is enough stock left, and add more if needed every 30 minutes or so. At the end of this stage, the internal temp should be above 170 F, 75 C. If it isn't, cook it for another 30 minutes until it reaches or goes above that temp. Let cool and store in the stock overnight. The next day, remove from the liquid, slather with oil, and optionally sprinkle on some MSG. I used about a tablespoon here. Bake that for 15 minutes at 350 F 175 C and then remove. Coat generously in barbecue sauce on both sides, leaving the presentation side face up. Make sure that you also coat the bones in the sauce and bake for another 15 minutes. Finish with the broiler for about 3 minutes, but make sure to watch the whole time as that sugar sauce can get boobly. If you're feeling it, you can get any of those non-charged spots with the culinary torch. Make sure to get those bones with a little bit of heat to make it look extra cool. Char bones. Cut in between the bones and then, well, go eat it. If you think this looks tasty, you should absolutely check out my episode on shredded seitan chicken, which is linked on your screen right now. It would make an excellent second protein on a barbecue plate along with these ribs. And until next time, y'all, be nice to each other and keep cooking.